Hi, I'm Jeremy Millette from International Sportsman, and we're at the Dallas Safari Club headquarters talking with Richard Cheatham, and he is the Executive Director of the DSC Foundation. Richard, is it fair to say that the DSC Foundation is the charitable arm of the Dallas Safari Club?
That's exactly what it is, Jeremy. It was set up to be the charitable receiving arm as well as the giving arm, the principal giving arm. We raise money. We, as a C3 organization, we are allowed to authorize and promote tax-deductible donations within the confines of the tax law. And then we turn around to a really rigorous and extensive grant-making process and disperse the money in the form of grants.
So the Dallas Safari Club does so much and has so many programs that they're involved with and people they work with, and we'll get into some of those, but you've been involved with the Dallas Safari Club for quite a while, so why did you personally get involved with the Dallas Safari Club?
I started coming to conventions in the very beginning, and I saw it. I had an interest in international hunting. But as I got more involved, I saw what the club was doing, and I saw the impact that it was having, and I saw also that it was a little bit different, and that it had the potential to do so much more and to really grow and to kind of claim a position that wasn't being adequately served in terms of messaging and promoting hunting. And I saw the dedication of the people involved, and I thought, I want to be part of that.
So you talk about the dedication of the people involved, and with the Dallas Safari Club, one of the things that's unique is that the majority of the money raised goes directly to conservation or organizations like Hunters Care or Frontline, and it's really because of this spirit of volunteerism that you have, right? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. We have something called the DSC 100, and it used to be the 100 volunteers that gave their time. Well, quickly that became 500, and so DSC 100 now refers to people that give 100% of their time and effort towards the club. And it was amazing to see how that worked and how integral that was to make the convention work. We have a lean, mean staff, dedicated people like Corey Mason and Terry Lewis, who's been around forever. Those people, the dedication of those people combined with the hard work and the dedication of those hundreds of volunteers really makes this club what it is.
And when you talk about that hard work and the dedication, I mean, a big part of that is the board that you have for the DSC Foundation. And talking about on that board, we have two contributors that are partners of International Sportsman. That's Dave Fulson and Larry Wysoon, that contribute articles and help us with content on International Sportsman. And tell us a little bit more about what the board does and how they expedite these grants when they're needed.
Sure. We developed a very rigorous process because there's nothing more important than honoring the wishes of people that give you money. And there's a lot of demands on charitable money right now, and we see that responsibility as penultimate for us. It is we have to be good stewards of the money. And so we developed a pretty rigorous process by which we are confident that we're using the monies effectively. We have what we call the Conservation Advisory Board, which consists of about 7 or 8 really internationally recognized elite conservationists around the world who look at every single grant application that comes in. They give us their input on it. That input goes back to our grants committee. We have very long, very detailed conversations about how we use that grant money, and the recommendations of that committee then goes back to the board, and the board makes the ultimate decision. And then we follow up. We have a very stringent grant agreement that we have each grant recipient sign, and we make sure that they spend the money the way they're supposed to. And part of the reason for that is that it allows us to tell people what we're doing with their money. It allows us to tell the world that this is what hunters' dollars do. That's one of those messages that kind of got lost and we didn't think was being adequately told. These success stories, the ability to show that hunting really is conservation and hunters' dollars are used adequately.
So when you talk about these grants, I mean, these are used in a wide variety of ways. Can you tell us a little bit more about what some of those grants are and how they've impacted policy?
You bet. Really, we're supporting the 3 prongs of the DSC mission statement, which simply stated is conservation, education, and outdoor advocacy. Advocacy for the rights of sportsmen and sportswomen. And so under the umbrella of conservation, we have anti-poaching grants, we have scientific research grants, we have community enhancement grants. Under the element of education, we support youth education, much more than that, youth education through our Outdoors Tomorrow foundation grants, through the NRA's Youth Hunting Education Challenge. We support the Wildlife Society. We support schools in Africa, Southern African Wildlife College, and then actually communal schools as well. And then under the advocacy, we support the efforts of John Jackson Conservation Force, extremely important, longtime recipient of DSC funds. Internationally, from an advocacy standpoint, we've supported Conservation Vision, Shane Mahoney, as an advocate on the international stage for DSC. And then the last component that's not really so much a grant, but it's certainly a mission-related expense, is our messaging campaign. It's certainly tied directly to advocacy and education, but we are promoting the benefits of international hunting around the world. That's one of those areas where there was a void. We got complacent. I think we either decided that we were right and didn't need to remind people about these great stories,
right.
But there was a void.
So when you talk about that, is there a particular story that you could tell us about how the foundation's work has helped influence public policy in some of these countries around conservation?
Yeah, I think two examples come to mind, and one in particular is a favorite project of mine. It's our support for Zambezi Delta safaris, and it is one particular operator who's developed a really extensive, holistic anti-poaching program. It doesn't just address the actual poaching, but it addresses the needs of the community to discourage and disincentivize poaching.
Okay.
And Mark Haldane is the owner. He has taken a concession in central Mozambique, ravaged by the Civil War and then the aftermath of that Civil War, and turned it from a desolate, almost empty environment to an environment that has, when he started, he did game surveys. He had 2,000 Cape buffalo. He's got 28,000 now.
Wow.
And so he's turned this thing around to the point where he was in a position, with help from us to support his anti-poaching program, to implement a project that's known to a lot of people called the 24 Lions Project, where they brought in 24 wild lions back into an area where they hadn't had lions for decades. That program got the attention of the non-hunting world, and we began to see really positive press coming out. And so we realized that A, supporting the right projects, and then B, telling the world about it is going to help us address the misconceptions and some of the misinformation and sway public opinion about hunting. And I think that's going to have a huge impact. And briefly, the other project that we're talking about that's also going to have a massive impact on international policy is a project called the Wild Harvest Initiative. And that's one that Shane Mahoney has put together. We were the very first ones to support that project many, many years ago. But it's a study about the use of wild game on North America. And they did surveys to determine how many hunters shared wild harvest, and then how many people actually benefited from that, and how many pounds of game meat were consumed by animals that have been hunted on the North American continent. And the numbers are staggering. The percentage was 92% share. And we're talking about billions of meals that are consumed by people who have shared in that harvest. And that's information that's never been gathered, and it's certainly never been publicized, but that's the kind of information that the international community wants to know.
And both of those programs are things that benefit both hunters and non-hunters. And that's, you're not just focused on hunting related stuff. It's how this impacts the ecosystem and people around the world. And those grants go toward these different missions, such as, and you talked about anti-poaching. There's a program that DSC has called Hunter's Care, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that and tell us what the problem really is.
Sure. We realized in early 2020, with the onset of the pandemic and the potential loss of at least parts of hunting seasons, that there was going to be a massive need. These outfitters, and this is something that the general public doesn't really understand, but these outfitters invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in anti-poaching, and they use revenue from hunts sold to pay for that, or to help pay for it. Well, all of a sudden, we all woke up in March, and they were likely to lose all or a significant portion of their hunting season, but they had to continue their anti-poaching efforts, because what happens when when that stops? Well, you've already got rampant poaching across the African continent, but without anti-poaching people in the field, without these hunting operators out there protecting their animals, then you've just opened the door to expand that, and that's exactly what happened. You also saw an increase in subsistence poaching, and that's understandable. But this perfect storm of the pandemic, an already healthy commercial illegal bushmeat trade, and then the lack of protection and the pullback of protection has really created a problem. So we thought, how do we address that? How do we address it rapidly? Well, we streamlined our grant giving process so that we could get applications and then turn around and fund rapidly. Between DSC and DSC Foundation, we made approximately 50 hunters care grants this last year. I believe our current number is about $400,000 spent. Wow. And we are protecting currently in excess of 25 million acres across southern, eastern, and central Africa, and keeping over 500 anti-poaching personnel in the field. And so we're proud of it, but that number could easily be and should be 50 million. We need to increase that number.
What would you like to see hunters do to help change the narrative and educate people as to how hunting through conservation really is conservation?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's multiple answers to it. But you touched on one of them, education. We want to build educated ambassadors to support hunting. And a lot of people don't hunt because of the conservation benefits. Everybody's got their own reason why they hunt, but there are conservation. No matter whether that's the reason you do it or not, that's a benefit to it. And we need to educate people so that when they're in the middle of their cocktail party conversation or a workplace conversation or a social media conversation, that they're equipped to respond to some of the anti-hunting information and the propaganda and the misinformation that's out there. The second part is be mindful of social media, the impact of social media. I'm not a proponent of banning trophy pictures, but some trophy pictures are better than others. And be careful of your presence on social media, because it's ammunition for those who don't like hunting and want to stop hunting. And the last suggestion, the last wish that I had for people is take somebody hunting, get them in the field, expose them to the beauty and the benefits of hunting, expose them to the hard work of hunting, and let them make sure they understand that hunting is much more than about the kill. Expose them to the camaraderie that you only find in a hunting camp. And if you can't get them in a duck blind or a deer blind, then invite them over for a meal. Share that harvest with them, because inevitably there's going to be an opportunity to talk about the hunt. But we want them to understand why we do what we do.
Again, it comes back to what you started with, is education, right? Yeah. If you at least understand why hunters do what they do and why we're so passionate about helping save these animals, and the way that we do it is through hunting, then you can empathize with us and why we get so passionate about these topics and why we put our money toward these things like the Dallas Safari Club, which really the lion's share of the money that comes into Safari Club through the auction or the convention or our donations goes directly to these grants and these types of operations to help conservation, help educate, help families, help stop poaching. And that's something that I don't think anyone can really argue with, that there's a benefit to all of those things.
Yeah, people can argue about the relative dollars that are spent, that are raised, but when you talk about the contributions of organizations like Dallas Safari Club, and then you talk about Pittman Robertson Wildlife Restoration Funds, you talk about other sources of outdoor funds, it's a significant amount of money. And then not to mention the money that these individual operators around the world are investing in their own operations out there. It's a significant amount of money, and the absence of that money is devastating and would be devastating and have an incredibly devastating impact. And that's component of this whole debate, this international debate about the merits of international hunting or hunting in general, has to do with this source of funding. People do not understand. They think there's a readily available replacement. They think ecotourism, which has its place, is a replacement. I can tell you, I'll go back to central Mozambique, middle of nowhere. Pristine, 800,000 acres. No one's going to go to there for a photo safari. You'll drive by a whole bunch of different areas it's hard to get to, but it is absolutely beautiful. No one's going to go to Pakistan and take pictures of an Estor or Markhor, but somebody's going to pay $100,000 for the right to go hunt one, and 80% of that's going to go straight back to the government to protect those animals, plus the local populations.
And Dallas Safari Club really steps in for those places with these grants and provides the funds to keep the animals in their natural habitats and keep these ecosystems thriving and continuing on for generations. So with that in mind, if someone wanted to be part of the Dallas Safari Club or help the foundation, where would you direct them to go?
Sure, the easiest, two places. To learn more about what we do, go to our Facebook page. We have an incredible video library of the projects that we support. We also constantly, every morning I wake up and search the wires and see what the latest story is. A great story by the Washington Post talking about the benefits of hunting. Again, an unusual source, but our Facebook page is a great source of information about the topic in general, but particularly what we do. And then our website will give people the opportunity to support us. We have a page dedicated to the Hunters Care Program. And then we also have links to a lot of those videos, the grants and action videos that we've done as well. And then obviously support the DSC. Come when we get back to the point where we have a live convention, come participate in our online auction. There'll be opportunities during the online auction to support the foundation as well.
So if you want to learn more about the Dallas Safari Club Foundation and Dallas Safari Club in general, be sure and check out their Facebook page, their YouTube channel as well, and check out their website. Guys, I can't stress enough how much they do for the global community and all the grants and the research that they've done to really help conservation.